Are you friend or foe? Not that it matters. You'll be on my side once we're finished. You haven't seen anything yet.
Flan is here. Is she any good? Let's take a look. Hey everyone, it's Mace1370, and today we're going to talk about the new Ice Ranger Flan. Before we get into that though, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Also, please check the video description below for a link to my Epic 7 Discord. We have a lot of great people talking about the game there, and I would love to have you. Okay, first up and most importantly, we have character design. I think they absolutely nailed it. She looks incredible. I'm a huge fan. I think that I will be pulling for her even if she's complete garbage, worst hero in the game. I don't care. I'm still pulling for her. That said, we can look at her base stats here. She's a Capricorn, which means that she will have the same or similar base stats to Elfelt and Green Bellona. Compared to them, however, her base speed is a bit higher. It's 115, theirs is 109, and then her attack, hit points, and defense are the same compared to them. The only way I can think to account for this difference in speed is that she must get speed from Awakenings. Either way, 6 speed is a lot to get from that, I guess, so she probably has like 2 speed Awakenings, maybe 3. If you can figure out a different reason why there's a discrepancy there, let me know in the comments below. That was all I could think of when I was looking at the different heroes. So her base attack of 1000 is pretty garbage. If you compare it to other Rangers, you know, they seem to have an attack of around 1200, so she's below average there. Her health is, I would say, average to above average. It's not the highest of the Rangers, but there's Rangers with less health. And her defense is kind of middle of the road also. Her speed is pretty decent. Faithless Litica, for example, has 114, like Cerise is 118, Fire Litica is 120, so she has a decent base speed. It looks like she might be getting some effectiveness from imprints as well. Overall, though, like pretty unimpressive base stats. I don't think Capricorn is a fantastic star sign to have. The imprint release and concentration, it looks like attack, you know, for 2 of your teammates, or effectiveness for herself. We'll see in her kit she has some debuffs, so I think effectiveness, you know, could be good for her. I'll probably be using the effectiveness imprint concentration if I pull multiple of her. So overall, I would say fairly unimpressive base stats. Speed is the only thing that stands out as being, you know, pretty decent to maybe a little bit above average, but overall, I'm a little underwhelmed on the stats. Flan's Skill 3 Advantageous Deal has a whopping 6-turn cooldown. You can get it down to 5 turns with a Molagora enhancement, but 5 turns is still a very long time. It puts unhealable and decreased defense on the entire enemy team for 2 turns. I was a little underwhelmed when I first saw this. Decreased defense is a very strong debuff. Unhealable is kind of not. When you put more debuffs on an enemy, though, you can kind of add debuff clutter and force dispellers to have to get rid of one more thing. So unhealable does have some value, even against teams that have no healers or sustain on their own side. So how do I think Flan will be used with this type of skill? Well, the 6-turn cooldown, or the 5-turn once you mullah it, I think is going to lend her to be used in more aggressive setups. You want to capitalize on that decreased defense and wipe out the enemy team before the super long cooldown on your skill 3 even matters. And decreased defense is a really, really scary debuff to have on one hero, let alone your entire team. So if you can pull this off using a stripper like, you know, Broman or Basar, then going into Flan, going into a Cleaver, you know, this could be a complete wipeout for the enemy team. When I saw that she did decreased defense on the entire enemy team, I immediately thought of Tywin, because he's another hero that does that. A difference between her and Tywin is that Tywin's skill is an attack, hers is not. So she is going to basically be like Flurry. She's not going to trigger counterattacks like Tywin potentially could. She is not going to trigger things like ML Tywin's passive to cleanse away stuff. So I think that she will definitely have a place in like a setup composition. You know, adding these debuffs means that she could also potentially fit into a control composition as well. So overall, I think that she's going to be a support hero with this type of skill, and you're going to have to use her with a cleanser. Sorry, with a stripper. Okay, Flan's Skill 2, Data Monopoly, only has a 3-turn skill cooldown, and it gives the critical hit damage buff for 2 turns and then boosts that ally by 30%. So, oh, and it looks like it goes to 40% after you mullah it. So this is a pretty good skill. 3-turn cooldown means that you'll, even on an aggressive team, you might be able to get it off a second time. And if you have her in a control team, certainly at least a second time, if not a third. And the critical hit damage buff is pretty interesting. I think she's the first hero to directly grant this buff. I know that Green Rin can give it to people, but Green Rin is giving out random buffs. She doesn't, do this one in particular. So I think Flan is the first one to offer this in a skill. So in terms of this buff, though, I'm a little on the fence with it. It's awkward because you build your damage dealers, obviously, to do damage, and critical hit damage caps. If critical hit damage didn't cap, this would just be amazing. But the fact that it caps means that a lot of your heroes are going to be, at 310, 320, 330, or maybe even 350 or something like that crit damage, and they're not going to get as much benefit from this. The buff, I think, gives 50% more crit damage. So, if you're running a hero with 340% crit damage, this is just only going to give them 10% more, and that's really underwhelming. So you could build your heroes, swap your gear around and get all your rolls into attack, and then be able to take full advantage of this buff. But then what happens when you go into RTA and Flan gets either pre-banned, banned, or taken by the opponent? Now you have all these heroes with really low crit damage, and you have no crit damage buff to help them out. So it's a little awkward to use. I think it's going to require some, building around maybe to take full advantage of this, especially at the top end when a lot of players have, heroes that have high crit damage. So that said, it may not be as big of a deal as I'm thinking. Like, a lot of RBs out there only have 300%. So maybe it won't be as bad as I think. I've run into a similar problem with Bruiser Lilius, where you want to pair her with like high attack heroes, and it can be awkward to fit them into your draft and stuff. So I think overall it'll be fine. This will be kind of like a mini Alots, and Alots is amazing, so this skill will probably be good. Communication Breakdown. This is the skill 1. It attacks an enemy, so a single target attack with a 50% chance to dispel one buff, and then it looks like you can mull that up to 5, 15, 25, so 75% chance to dispel one buff. And this is her skill that can be soul burned. It's only a 10 cost soul burn, which is very important to note because 10 cost soul burns are extremely easy to use. And if you burn it, then the chance to strip a buff goes up to 100%, and then it dispels 2 buffs from the target. So that's a very solid skill 1 for a support unit like Flan. I think this type of thing could help her fit into a control team because, sometimes when you're playing control, or when people have played against me, their control, I never draft control, you'll have that one window where you break out and you get immunity up on everybody. So a hero like this might be able to add extra, stripping or dispelling and help regain control, get rid of immunity, get rid of some other buff that they put up like a shield or something, and kind of restabilize. Also, it's just, very handy. Like, there's tons of buffs out there. Even if you're not playing control, you can constantly, pick away at buffs that the enemy is putting up, like, crit resist buff, stuff like that. So I think that this is a very useful skill 1 for her. Alright, Flan's artifact is Unseen Observer. This has a few interesting abilities. The first, after using a non-attack skill, it gives the caster a CR boost, and then also acquires 10 souls, and you only get the souls the first time you do that. So you don't get 10 souls every time you use a non-attack skill. That would obviously be busted. Either way, though, getting souls early in the battle or the start of the battle is super strong. We know Tag of Hell's Ancient Book is one of the most broken artifacts in the game, so getting souls early is very good. The CR boosting, I think, is also going to be really good for her to help her turn cycle. I think that'll be very nice. The souls, I think, will be most useful probably in a cleave setup, where you're using her right after a stripper like Basar. Then you go with Flan, you get the souls, it'll help you burn one more time or something like that on one of your damage dealers. So really solid there. I think it could also work well in control comps, just because souls are good. I'm sure there's a variety of heroes that could use those extra souls in different ways. And it might mean that you don't necessarily have to put a mage, in that slot on the team. So it could give your draft a little more flexibility. So I think that's very solid. Other alternatives for her, there's not actually a lot. I mean, Guiding Light, I guess, could be good if you're worried about getting turn 1 and you want to protect her. Maybe that would be better in a control setup where you're building her more tanky for a longer game. Alternatively, I'm thinking maybe Proof of Valor for a similar thing, but I think this will be a very solid choice for her, if not the best in slot. So should you pull for Flan? Well, she's obviously waifu, so, if that's your reason, go for it. Additionally, I think that she could be a very viable unit to use in a cleave team and potentially a control team. So if you play either of those team compositions, then I think Flan will probably be good for you. I am unsure if she will fit into bruiser comps very well. I'm skeptical that that'll be the case, which makes me sad because I'm primarily a bruiser player. But we just heard when RTA will end, so maybe in the off season I'll start experimenting with, cleave and control, and I'll get to use Flan. Either way, I'll be pulling for her because her design is amazing. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Later.